On today's episode, we're going to talk about the most recent win by the Bengals in the divisional round over the Tennessee Titans. Got some thoughts about that game, go break it down, the victory over the Titans, and take a little bit of a look ahead at what's coming up this coming Saturday against the Kansas City Chiefs. Alrighty, let's get to it. Welcome to the Way of the Dad podcast, where we fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness. If you like what you are hearing, please share the podcast and give it a review on the platform where you listen. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's great to have you here, and it is another great day to be a Bengals fan. The Cincinnati Bengals did it again. They overcame adversity, and there was a lot in this game, and they beat the number one seeded Tennessee Titans in Tennessee, which I didn't even know this, to be honest with you. But this was the first road playoff victory for the Cincinnati Bengals in their entire franchise history. That's simply amazing. All of the other victories that the Bengals had, for the playoff runs back in the 80s, I didn't realize this, but they were the top seed the whole time. So they always hosted a home game until the Super Bowl. Yeah, heart was about jumping out my chest the whole time. Blood pressure skyrocketing. As you might expect. One of the things that really impressed me, though, was just how clean of a game Joe Burrow played when compared to the absolute beating that he took. Over 300 yards and only one interception, which, if you saw the interception, I don't know how much of that you'd really put on Burrow. It may not have been the most perfectly thrown pass, but it really just bounced right off the hands of Samaje Perine. And then, of course, right into the defenders. Very unfortunate interception. Still don't know if that was actually an interception or an incompletion, but I get it. It was called an interception, so it had to be very clear and obvious to overturn that call. So, okay, whatever. But Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times. The most times any quarterback has ever been sacked and still won a game. At least a playoff game. I don't know if that applies to the regular season as well, but I know to a playoff game it does, for sure. And he just didn't care. There's a meme out there that, about Joe Burrow doesn't give a single damn about your defense. Well, he apparently doesn't. It was pretty awesome. That wasn't the prettiest offensive output you've ever seen. It was it was a rough game. Back in the day, I used to watch WWE wrestling, and there was a guy named Jim Ross who did the ringside commentary, and he would always call it a slobber knocker if it was a really bad hit, and that was a slobber knocker of a game for Joe Burrow, and I'm quite sure he probably having a lot of body work done, ice baths, and things like that. But he just kept getting up, and he just kept not caring. He played like he hadn't been hit at all. Ja'Marr Chase, first rookie wide receiver with multiple 100-plus yard playoff games. Another record for Ja'Marr Chase. This kid is phenomenal. He's absolutely phenomenal. Talking about Money Mac, Evan McPherson, the kid is just, in big spots, he's gigantic. When the stakes are huge, he's bigger than the stakes. Kid is an ice-cold killer out there. Joe Burrow was talking about in the postgame talking about how apparently McPherson was doing a couple warm-up kicks and looks over at Brandon Allen, the backup quarterback, and goes, well, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship, before he went out to kick the game-winning field goal. Man, that takes stones. Oh, man. That's confidence. And the defense. The defense is the reason why we won the game. Without their production, we'd be talking about next year and, free agency and the draft and all that other stuff. Which that's always fun, but I'm having a lot more fun talking about the wins. DJ Reader went out there, and he was an absolute beast, clogging up the running, keeping a lid on King Henry. The defense held him to 62 yards, and DJ Reader was a huge part of that. Of course, it was huge to have Hendrickson back across from Hubbard, I should say. And make no mistake, the secondary of the Bengals is the reason why we are talking about next weekend. This coming weekend, I guess I should say. I mean, they really set the tone, didn't they? Bates sets the tone right away, goes out there, and absolutely undercuts the route and picks off Tannehill on the very first play from scrimmage for the Titans. Then Mike Hilton, if I remember correctly, I believe it was right at the first possession of the Titans in the second half, was going in for it looks like he was going to be a free rusher to go after Tannehill. Tannehill tries to throw it out to a kind of like a hot read screen option type swing out. Not quite a lateral, but a barely forward pass. And Mike Hilton got up there, popped it up, caught it himself, and ran off. My only regret is that Mike Hilton apparently wasn't actually able to run faster than Ryan Tannehill. That was a little disappointing, but we'll take the turnover. And then Eli Apple. Let's talk about him for a second. Eli Apple, coming into this year, was never supposed to be a heavy starter. It was supposed to be Trey Waynes. Okay. Trey Waynes was supposed to be the heavy starter cornerback opposite Awuzie. But because Trey Waynes is, I don't mean to be funny, but he's been injured so much that it's like, I don't know that we should ever bother to expect that he'll ever do anything with this contract, and I wonder if the Bengals will probably release him after the season, because his contract has been an albatross. We've basically paid him to be injured the whole time. Eli Apple comes in, and he was basically a reclamation project. He was a bust with the Giants, didn't really do anything down with the Saints, and we picked him up for a song and a dance, basically as a warm body, just for spot work. And I'm not going to lie. Me and my buddy Dave, we typically watch games together, and we were all over Apple in the first, at least third of the season, if not the first half, but definitely the first third. He was rough. His coverage abilities were not that good. I mean, we were thinking like, okay, here we go. We've got another Dre Kirkpatrick, who's basically, if the ball goes in his direction, probably going to commit a penalty of some kind. I wish there was a award for turnaround player of the year. Not a comeback player, but a turnaround player. As in, this kid really turned it around. I mean, he really did. He turned it around. He has become definitely not a top-tier cornerback, but he has become a reliable starter. He still gets burned from time to time, but he's not a liability. He's out there doing all kinds of great things in coverage, generally understands his role, generally knows, it seems like he's learned what he can and cannot do, physically speaking, and he sealed the game. He popped that ball up. It was like, 20 seconds left, 25 seconds left. With 25 seconds or so, Tannehill's and the Titans are driving, and he gets it up in the air so that Logan Wilson can pick it off and give the offense one more chance to break the tie, not go to overtime, and just straight up win this puppy. Which is exactly what Joe Burrow just did. Goes out there, guy's got to be sore, The guy's got to be beaten up and tired. Throws an absolute dart to Jamar Chase, who catches it right out on the sidelines, steps out of bounds, kills the clock. It was fantastic. And me and my buddy are just sitting there just in disbelief. There's that meme going around right now where shows two people on like a roller coaster ride, and you got this little kid, and they're just having the greatest time, just, in just absolute glee and awe. And they're, labels them as new Bengals fan who just thinks it's awesome to win. And then you've got this older guy next to him, and it looks like just disbelief, like, oh my God, is this really going to happen? And of course, that Bengals fan is lifelong Bengals fan who's seen all of the misery and the losing. And so me and my buddy, it's obvious, we're going through kind of back and forth between both. We're elated and excited and jumping up and down, but then also like, wait a minute, is this real? Is this really happening? Are we really going to the divisional round? It's pretty amazing. All right, let's talk about what's coming up. Kansas City. We're going to be matching up with them again, like a month later. So some things that I'm thinking about going into this game. And the obvious thing is, we really don't want Joe Burrow getting sacked even 6 or 7 times, let alone 9. And so is the O-line going to be able to hold up against Kansas City? I think it will. I think it will for a reason. If you watched the last game between the Bengals and Kansas City, you notice that Joe Burrow didn't get pressured too much. I mean, they got home a couple times, but he really didn't see a lot of pressure. And that's because there's a fundamental difference between the defense for the Titans and Kansas City's defense. The Tennessee Titans' defensive line is one of probably the best in the league, at least that the Bengals have seen this year, in both individual skill people on the line, but also their schemes and their stunts. If you watch that game, their defensive line players are really good, high ability people, but they were also stunting and scheming, flipping around defensive ends, stunting back and coming back around and trying to run up the middle. They were always doing something trying to throw the offensive line off, and even Burrow admitted later they were doing a lot of things that it was just really hard for him to tell what they were planning on doing. And of course, it's confusing him, it's confusing the O-lineman, and the tight ends in there to try to help block. So they really, really, really had a quote-unquote hard day at the office. Kansas City's defense doesn't do that. Their defensive line doesn't do that. They're just really good, and they're just going to hit you. They're just going to go straight at you. You could say it's simpler. That doesn't make it easy. But their schemes are a little simpler. So probably a little easier for them to plan against them. I'm sure that they're going to try to do something because, hey, look, it's the AFC Championship game. One team wins, one goes home. So I'm sure they're going to try to whip out some things maybe that we didn't see last time, or they're going to be looking at film too, but so are we. So the other thing is wonder about our D-line. Is our D-line going to be able to hold up against Kansas City, their offense? Well, one of the things, I didn't realize this at the time, one of the things that we didn't have, or one of the people, I guess I should say, that we didn't have when we played KC last time, we didn't have DJ Reader, who was an absolute nightmare in the Titans game. He was a big reason why Derrick Henry didn't look anything like King Henry. Didn't look anything like the extremely scary back that we were all being told was just inevitable that we were going to get blasted by King Henry. So we got Reader, who we didn't have last time. And we do have some other linemen who actually were able to play last week, who had been injured for a fair amount of the season. Don't know that they're necessarily at the same level of Ogunjobi, but I think the D-line's going to do just fine. One of the big things I imagine that Taylor and Callahan and the coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to want to start faster this time. It is not ideal. I mean, it's amazing that we won last time we played the Chiefs, but it is never ideal to spot any NFL team, let alone one as prolific as the Chiefs. You don't want to spot them 17 points. Basically, effectively give them a head start and say, I'm still faster than you, I'm still going to beat you. That's not a great way to win. I mean, it's great that we were able to do it. I very much prefer we don't do that again. So you imagine they're going to be planning on trying to start faster this time. It's also not, I mean, obviously we hope the defense can learn from what they learned last time in the second half. They were able to hold Patrick Mahomes and that vaunted offense to 3 points the entire second half. That's great. But it's also unrealistic to think that we're just going to hold them to 3 points the entire game, like if we knew then what we know now, type thing. Now that we know it, can we do it? Well, I mean, it's great, and I hope we can. But our defense has been able to be effective against Patrick Mahomes. One of the things you saw, everybody says the Bills and the Chiefs game was just so amazing, and it was just so this, that, and the other. One of the things I noticed, I didn't see a lot of great defense being played. I saw people who were wide open a lot, wide receivers on both sides. And it looked like a very offensive game. I remember looking down near the end of the second quarter and saw the score, and it was a lot lower than I expected. I was like, wow. It feels like I've seen nothing but offense all day. And I figured the score would be a lot higher. I figured it'd already be like 20, almost 30 points, and it just wasn't yet. But that game was nothing but offense. There wasn't a lot of defense going on. Definitely some special teams. And I'm not saying the defense didn't show up at all on either team, but it's just obvious the defenses weren't matched well against the opposing offenses. Of course, Kansas City's going to be trying to adjust from what happened last time, what we did to them last time. I'm sure of that. They're not going to want to go out there and be shut out to 3 points or limited to 3 points, But I think the biggest goal, and this was evident by the Bills team, the Bills game last week, this past weekend with the Chiefs. Something they didn't learn from our games, the best strategy that you can have against offenses like the Kansas City Chiefs, especially considering Patrick Mahomes and his prolific ability, the best way to beat him is to keep him on the bench. And that is one of the things the Bengals can do. Both the Bills and the Chiefs this past weekend, it was a wonderful game to watch. It's a popcorn game, It's like having a cheat meal where you're eating all of the pizza and candies and cookies and, just going nuts. But it's not healthy, and it's not really the way you win a football game against either one of those teams. And the funny thing is both those teams look a lot like each other. Well, one of the things the Bengals can do that I didn't see either the Chiefs or the Bills really do much is they can lead long, time-eating, sustained drives. And that is the key. And it's going to really help if they can get Joe Mixon going faster than they did against the Titans and more consistently than they did against the Titans. But grind it out. Grind down their defense. Get them tired. Make them stay on the field for a long time. Make Patrick Mahomes have to go and keep warming up on the sideline because he's still not getting out there. That's how you beat them. So, really looking forward to this weekend's game. Of course, as any good lifelong Bengals fan, obviously nervous. But, it's really looking forward to this. And I hope you are too. Let me know what you think, comments or email or reach out on the Facebook page if you want a message. Hope you're enjoying the content. And until next time, take care. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. The Way of the Dad podcast is produced and recorded by, well, me, a stunningly average husband and father, who appreciates all of the likes, shares, reviews, and support you give. If you would like to reach out, you can find the podcast on its Facebook page, and of course you can email me at wayofthe.dadpodcast@gmail.com. Come back next time as we continue to fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness.